Hello and welcome to another exciting day at VWBPE. For this third day of conference, we have Andrew Hughes with us. Andrew Hughes founded Designing Digitally Incorporated, which specializes in e-learning, training simulations, serious games, and virtual immersive learning. Andrew has extensive experience in education as a professor at both the University of Cincinnati and at the Art Institute of Ohio, Cincinnati. Currently, Andrew is the president of Designing Digitally Incorporated and also a curriculum evaluator for ACICS, Accrediting Council for Independent Colleges and Schools. The majority of Andrew's experience has been in the development of enterprise learning solutions for government and Fortune 500 clients. Moreover, Andrew was a consultant for the Ohio Board of Regents and the U.S. Department of Education for the Office of Innovation, where he helped to develop groundbreaking learning spaces for the K-12 sector. Having successfully taken on responsibilities in instructional design, project management, sales, and leading his own team, Andrew has propelled Designing Digitally Incorporated to be an award-winning virtual immersion and e-learning company. Everyone, please help me welcome Andrew Hughes.
Hello, everyone. How is everyone today? I'm lagging just a little bit, so I'm heading to the podium and I will stop right there. One thing I just want to give everyone a heads up, I do have my audio in Second Life muted. So what we will be doing is I will be doing a presentation today on what is gamification and what are serious games and how does that affect virtual worlds and how does that affect learning. Many of you are very wet fish in this realm, so much of this you may or may not know, but one of the things that I would like to do is, and that might be a little different than many of the other keynotes, I'm going to leave the end of the presentation open for questions and comments, ideas, and thoughts, considering the community that is around virtual worlds best practices in education. And I think you may have some great insight on some of the things that we are tackling and may have some ideas and thoughts on what can help our industry as a whole. So with that said, I will get started here, and I just want to say thank you so very much to everyone that have shown up today, and a large thank you, and if we could take a second for a round of applause to all of the members that are involved in putting on the Virtual Worlds Best Practice in Education Conference. I can tell you from just hearing the back channels that there has been a ton of effort by many different individuals to make this conference happen. So let's say thank you very much to all of them and give them a round of applause and do a happy dance for everyone here. Thank you guys to everyone that's put this on. So now that we have that, what I'm going to do is actually start to talk a little bit about designing digitally and who we are. And then I'm going to be talking about what is gamification and what are serious games. And the reason why is I am finding in the large organization, the large corporate organizations, and even in government agencies here in the United States, that the word gamification and serious games are used simultaneously without clear defined definitions of what those are. And the reason why I tell you that is you can have a gamified experience inside of Second Life, or you can have game-based learning inside of Second Life. It depends on your approach, and we're going to be talking about that today. You did hear a little bit of introduction about myself, so I want to just explain who is Designing Digitally and what we've been doing. We were one of the first of the 40 gold solution providers back when Linden Ladd had the gold solution providers directory and the vendor directory. We started in 2001. I started this company. We went incorporated in 06. We have 10 full-time in-house employees. We have level 1 staff security clearance. We have our GSA MOBIS. And we have worked with many different agencies. Some of the awards that we've won over the last few years are top 10 e-learning development company, top content development company, business of the year, Ohio Excellence Awards for our comments and effort. And I'll be talking a little bit about that because one of the things you should know is our company is a democracy. Our company has profit sharing for all of our employees, and each one of our employees, no matter if you are the president, like myself, or the administrative assistant, or the person that's been here for 1 week, you have a say and a claim in any major decision that the company makes. So each one of our employees takes ownership of this organization by understanding that the money that they make by working on these projects and keeping them under budget allows them to actually increase the wages that they make at the end of the year. Some of the clients that we've worked with on immersive learning, 3D learning experiences, gamification, and serious games are NASA, the U.S. Army, the Air Force, the Department of Defense, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the Census Bureau, and it's really amazing. Each one of these clients are using virtual worlds and simulated learning experiences for very different reasons. And I can give you a couple examples. For the U.S. Army, we are actually in the process of working on a company of heroes like 3D serious game that teaches environmental liabilities to the Army when they please don't touch the board. When they actually, I'm sorry, threw me off a little bit. We're building a company of heroes 3D simulated learning experience that teaches them environmental liability when they set up a camp somewhere in a particular region. Second, one of the things that we're doing with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, we are actually developing day in the life of, where you're in the day in the life of a prison guard. For the United States Air Force, we actually built a massive MMO that can hold 10,000 concurrent users. It's a browser-based virtual world that is used as a virtual environment for recruiting of potential students to go to the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We ended up building a learning experience that can hold just as many users as World of Warcraft with a large infrastructure, cloud computing simulated experience that was both real-time and also allowed for artificial intelligence systems to give you virtual tours and allow you to actually play mini games and learn about the campus. Another great example is for the United States Census Bureau. Give me 1 second here. Somebody has access to move the slides. Let's see. I press the lock button. There we go. Sorry about that, everyone. I didn't lock the slides. So as I was speaking, we did the day in the life for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. We did the Company of Heroes development for the United States Air Force or for the United States Army. We did the browser-based virtual environment for the U.S. Air Force. For the Department of Justice, we are actually built a multimedia immersive experience that teaches you about each former FBI officer that has worked at the FBI. So those are some of the development work that we've done in the past with some of the interactive media and immersive learning experiences that we've created. And my apologies, I was thrown off a little bit because I didn't have my slides locked. Some of the clients that we've had in the corporate realm is General Electric, Time Warner Cable, TD Ameritrade. We actually worked with the Linden Lab. We built some, we assisted Linden Lab in some of the enterprise development work a few years ago. Procter & Gamble, we're one of the trusted vendors for Procter & Gamble. Burger King, you guys would love this. We actually built an immersive learning experience where you are in the day in the life of a Burger King employee, learning how to create the perfect Burger King fries and please the king. So with that said, what I'm going to move on to now, kind of explaining some of the stuff that we've done, is what's the difference between gamification and game-based learning? Gamification, here's the best way to look at this. This is the best analogy that I can really explain what gamification actually is. Do you remember when you were a kid and an adult said, we have to put these groceries away. Let's play a game. Whoever can get their groceries put away the fastest gets to eat the first cookie. That type of analogy and thought process, what has happened is the adult that was trying to get you to do chores and give you a reward system actually utilized gamification. They took a game mechanic such as a contest and they applied that to an everyday solution in an everyday situation. And what that has done is made it more interesting for the young or the child to actually put the groceries away rather than just them looking at it as a chore. That is a way that you need to understand how gamification and what gamification actually is. So it's the use of game thinking and game mechanics to get people to solve problems or to do something that they feel is very, very boring. Now, what isn't gamification? This is the best way to look at this. Chess, checkers, or any type of already developed game is not gamification. And the reason why is these are actually set up for us to be entertained. Gamification is just trying to take very boring material and figuring out how to approach it in a fun way. This is also not gamification. Looking at the arcade systems in the arcades that we used to go to, or at least I did, considering I am one of the older generations to have games as a primary and a core form of entertainment, this is also not gamification. So what is actually gamification and what are the actual key aspects of gamification? First and foremost, this is actually the best way to look at a criteria for gamification. Gamification must have these 4 pieces to it to actually be effective. The first one is mechanics. The second one is your measurements. The third one is the reward systems that you're building into it. And the fourth is, how are you changing the behavior of the actual people utilizing this game, this gamified experience? So I'm going to talk about each one of these in just a second, but these are the main criteria. If you want to have an effective gamification experience, that means putting mechanics into a boring situation. And you can do this, and to give you guys a good idea is, I know I put it into a context of looking at a child and having them do something they don't want to do, such as chores. But this actually applies even in the corporate world. We've actually used gamification to work with executive level employees at large corporations to determine on what are the actual pain points by creating a gamified experience where they talk about what are the problems at their organization. Because sometimes it's very hard to be able to look in the mirror and point out the flaws without it being painful. So what we've done is utilize gamification in these processes to determine on what the pain points are for some of our Fortune 500 companies, and then determine on what type of learning experience would be best for them. So it can be used in many different fashions. So let's talk about each one of these type of experiences. So the first one, or the criteria, the first one is mechanics. One of the things a gamified learning experience has to have is a mechanic system. There has to be a way for learners to see progress. Within the context that I gave with children, the mechanics are speed and looking at the outcome of who's the fastest. Therefore, that's your progress. You can actually see the progress actually happening from the learners, but they are actually able to visually see it while you have them take a package from point A to point B. They can see how many packages they need to do, or how many items they need to put away. Also, you need to be able to see a leaderboard. In gamification or any type of experience where you're using mechanics, there has to be the ability to use competitive advantage. And for some reason, us as human beings love status. And we'll be talking about that here in a second. So utilize the status and the ability for people to compete against each other in making something a lot more fun. The next one is measurement. You have to be able to measure the experience. One of the ways that you can do it is performance, tracking analytical information as far as performance. Analytics is extremely important when it comes to any type of gamified learning experience. Because in the past, especially in the corporate world, they're used to traditional e-learning modules, which could be built in Adobe Flash, Captivate, Storyline, or something of that nature, where it would be a linear thing that you guys would take, and it would be a quiz at the end, and you would be done. With serious game and simulated learning experiences, or even gamified learning experiences, what we're finding is you need a lot more measurement than did they complete the game or not. We have to be able to determine the performance of individual players, invested, but the most important thing considering it is, was the content or was the actual goal met, and was the content absorbed? And a good example of that is, did the child actually complete putting away all the groceries, or did the child give up halfway through? Or did one child become disinterested because the other child was just had a 2-to-1 ratio in putting away groceries, which did not allow them to feel as if they had a competitive chance. So there's a lot more measurement that has to be taken into consideration when making a gamified learning experience. The next one is rewards. Here's the best way to understand rewards and status. Every single individual here is willing to show what kind of vehicle they drive, what kind of clothes they wear, what kind of watch they have. But how many of you are actually willing to tell us how much money you have in your bank account right now? For all of you that are not willing to show and talk about what you actually have in the bank, you show that with status. Status is one of the biggest motivational factors with human beings. Status allows people to understand their classification, both in an economic sense and in a social sense. So looking at this, status is something that can be used for performance. It can be used to motivate people. So one of the things that you should do with any type of experience, the gamified learning experience, or gamifying even just doing the chores with your children, is there has to be a reward system. If that means they get a sticker, we all remember the lovely gold stars we had in class. Some of our teachers got it. Some of our teachers saw that there needs to be a reward system, but they didn't add any of the other mechanics that we're talking about today to make class a little bit more fun. So with that said, taking into consideration that reward systems such as virtual goods, access to particular things, status that you've completed something, or even recognition, allows people to want to continue to be a part of whatever this boring context is that you're trying to make fun. And then one of the last major pieces of gamification is the behavior. One of the things that you were trying to do is you're trying to get loyalty by these individuals. Again, taking it into the context of a child, trying to get them to put their chores away. How do you make them loyal to continue to do that? You have to be able to provide them with rewards, provide them with competitive challenges, and provide it with mechanics that make it fun to continue to keep that game loyalty. And what do? You continue with user engagement. So a good example is you cannot continue to just bring the same mechanics to this child year after year, day after day to do their chores. You're actually going to continue to have to add mechanics, change the type of game mechanics mechanics that you're using to make this a little more fun for the children. So a good example is maybe instead of putting the actual groceries away from the car to the refrigerator, next time you have them do it while walking backwards. That's adding another level of complexity, another challenge for them, another mechanic for them. And now it's even more interesting while all you've done is change one behavior or one piece of it, which is now changing the behavior of the actual user. A great example in our world that we're really something that is not looked at very often is frequent flyer miles. Frequent flyer miles is one of the first examples of gamification ever. What they've done with frequent flyer miles, and many of you would probably understand this with Linden dollars. With frequent flyer miles, what you'll find is there is a conversion from real money to virtual currency. The only hard part about that is what the frequent flyer mile companies have done is they have made it to where it is hard for you to determine on how much a value of that virtual currency is compared to real currency. Now with Linden's, that's much different. You guys are able to import and export money in and out of Second Life. However, a lot of let's say virtual worlds or even serious games, they don't allow you to port any money out of it. It's all money in and no money out. And the reason why is they can manipulate the actual virtual currency to be in their favor. So a lot of times what the airlines do is they manipulate that virtual currency so that you can't really understand why does it cost me 60,000 virtual frequent flyer miles to buy the coffee mug and it's only 70,000 for the coffee pot. And so there are things that that are done that we are actually utilizing gamification and we don't actually notice it. Another good example is this is the credit card points you get on your credit card. That's another incentive program. It's another mechanic that's been put in as a reward system for you. However, again, that's another virtual currency that is very hard to track. Therefore, it's still in the best interest of the actual credit card company while providing you a reward. Now, for any classroom teachers, this is one thing that I want to bring up. This is a great example, one of the best examples of the gamification for the classroom. So Class Dojo is a free online experience for teachers. And what you can do is you can actually, let me turn around, sorry everyone. You can actually utilize this. It's completely free for teachers. And Class Dojo, what it is a system that has put gamification into your everyday practices of your classroom. It's completely free. It's for students and for teachers. And what you do as a teacher is you have an admin administration panel that allows you to actually give points and give pieces, give badges and give awards to students depending on any activity or action that's happened throughout the day. If that means they read 10 pages in their book, that you can give them points. The system runs through your cell phone and online. Students can see how well they've done throughout that day. They can see how well the class has done throughout that day. And they can also see, their parents can actually log in and see how well their student has been doing day to day. However, the one thing that I want to forewarn you about is if you are going to use Class Dojo in your classrooms, please make sure that you take a considerable amount of time to ensure that you set it up correctly, because your rubrics and your criteria on what students get badges for and what they get points for is really going to be dependent upon how successful that is. So even though there's this amazing tool called Class Dojo that is free for all teachers to use in their classroom, or even instructor-led trainers in the corporate world can use this, it's all about your criteria. What are you going to give them points for, and what nominal value are you going to put on each activity? Another excellent example of gamification in our world is the Nike Fuel Band. Has anyone purchased or does anyone use a Nike Fuel Band? For any of you that have not used the Nike Fuel Band, or the Fitbit. For anyone that is, I noticed there was another example. Fitbit and the Nike Fuel Band. Nike realized that gamification could be used for something other than just learning. Nike realized that they can get people to be active if they utilize gamification in the development of their new devices. For all of you that are not familiar with the Fitbit or the Nike, and what they are is they are a tracking device that tracks your movement, your calories, and your fuel points. Give me 1 second, everyone. Letty and Mal, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, Andrew, we're fine. It seemed to be a Skype glitch, but I think we're okay now. We've reinstituted the call.
Okay, great. Sorry, everyone. We had a Skype hiccup, so we're back. Sorry if my mic was skipping. So back to the gamification experience with Nike. Nike realized that they could use gamification to get people to move and to utilize it with their new devices coming out. So the great thing about Nike Fuel Band is it comes with an app that you can download for your phone. You can do it on the web, and you can do it on your tablets. And what it does is it tracks your Nike fuel points, your calories, your active time, the steps you've taken that day, how many miles you've completed that day. And you can actually set goals for yourself. And then it allows you to share your information with all of your friends, and you can compete against your friends on day-to-day activities. And a great example of that is, this is me, or this is an example of what mine would look like. And then I have that overachieving friend from undergraduate. He's a lawyer. And for all of you that were wondering, I did get permission to use a screenshot of his Facebook. But here's a great example. I, on one hand, only have ran 73.4 miles. My friend here has ran over 503 miles in his experience of using the Nike Fuel Band and the Fitbit. As you can see, I am a complete underachiever compared to my friend. However, looking at the person underneath me, I can see that I have far achieved the other individual that is on this. So looking at this, this is a great example of how I can see how I stack up against my friends. And now a good example is Robbie, my friend. He went to undergrads with me. He's actually a lawyer in Miami, Florida. So I never get to really interact with him. However, the ways that I do get to interact with him is to actually talk to him on Facebook and compete against him using my Nike Fuel Band and the Nike Fitbit. So it allows me to, gamification also allows me to continue to be interactive with some of my friends that I wouldn't normally know what was going on, and nor would I really have any other interaction outside of, let's say, Facebook. So the Nike Fuel Band actually has brought us closer as friends by being able to have this competitive experience against each other. So now what I'm going to talk about is what is actual game-based learning. For many of you inside of virtual environments, game-based learning is what you are used to. Game-based learning is exactly what you expect it to be. It is using competitive exercises and putting people against each other for them to challenge or to motivate people. And a good example of game-based learning can be many different ways, but any type of learning experience that you've had inside of a game. So if any of you ever played high school sports or grade school sports, you actually experienced game-based learning. At the beginning, when you first kicked a soccer ball, you were really bad at it. By the end of the season, you might have been able to dribble a little bit better. That is actually learning in context inside of a game. That is what game-based learning is. It's learning inside of a game. So games also have a fantasy element to them, as you guys know. It must have a good use of a storyline. It must be very engaging. And it has to have user-centered feedback. You must be able to get them feedback and information immediately. And the reason why is we are now a society of instantaneous feedback. I spend half my day saying, why haven't I got that email yet, when I know that the individual sent it to me a minute and a half ago? And it's because we are a society now of instant gratification. So inside of any type of experience you make inside of SL, you please make sure that you have some user-centered feedback and they're getting feedback instantaneously on any action or interaction that they are doing. And the reason why is that you'll have a much more complex experience for your learners or your users. A best example of game-based learning is us playing t-ball. Many of us had to learn how to pick up the bat, how to swing, how to throw, how to catch the baseball. All of that learning that took place while we played t-ball is the example of what game-based learning actually is. Now, putting that into a different context, I'm going to show you this example here. We actually just finished last month developing a game-based learning experience for a Fortune 500 company. This Fortune 500 company wanted a game-based learning experience that lasted 10 minutes a day for 365 days. And it was a multiplayer game that allows their salespeople to learn how to sell and cross-sell the solutions that the company sells currently. And your job is to take over the territory and the city against your other salespeople. And the whole premise of this game, we build an artificial intelligence system that pits you against hesitant buyers, reluctant buyers, early adopters, and tech people, non-tech people, administrators, CEOs, IT people. And what you have to do is determine their problem, their pain point, provide a solution, and cross-sell the solution to the artificial intelligence system for you to be able to win that sale. At the same time, all of the other 10,000 salespeople are doing the exact same thing, and you are all fighting for territory. You can only play the game up to 4 turns a day, which allows for and allocates for 10 minutes a day. You are provided the ability to, with the money that you gain inside of the serious game, to buy training. The training then unlocks more companies with more needs. And you continue down this process as this is an unlimited, non-ending serious game that is delivered on the iPad, the Android, and on the web in real time. So you can actually use your iPad, your Android device, and on the web and log in, log out, and you will start where you left off. So what we've done is built this large-scale SimCity-like experience where you're learning how to cross-sell solutions. This system with the random artificial intelligence system that we built took 9 months to develop. And the system allows for over 500,000 unique experiences with a potential client. So think about the time and energy had to be put into building a game-based learning experience like this that mimics the sales situation that they have had. We had to interview an absolute ton of salespeople at their organization to find out what the pain points were and to develop out scenarios and situations in the artificial intelligence system that would allow for this to happen. So this is a way that you can actually use game-based learning to make what we would consider something very boring, teaching you how to sell to people, much more fun and engaging. Also, it's a much more fun way to learn about products and services that the company you work for is selling by being immersed into this experience than it is to be told what those solutions are. Currently, this development is exclusive for that company. However, we are going to be releasing a new version for another company also here in the future. But everything that we build is custom developed for that particular company. And the reason why is it's based around that company's need. For instance, this company's sales process cycle and their clients are going to be much different than even their direct competition would be. So you have to develop it around exactly what the client needs, not a build it once and it's for everyone. So here's another screenshot of this. Again, looking at game-based learning, there has to be badges, there has to be rewards, there has to be incentives, there has to be achievements, there has to be these mechanics to make it fun and engaging. So a good example is, this is just a screenshot of some of the achievements. A good example is you can get a level 3 smooth talking achievement, you can get a level 2 adventurer achievement, or you can get a level 9 capital gain achievements. And all of those mechanics and pieces are built into the design doc absolutely before any 3D modeling, any animation, any audio, any development is done. Before we touch anything, there is a detailed design document and plan in place so that it is clearly outlined on what we're doing. And I find that many times that is overlooked, or there's not as much time applied to that as there needs to be in a lot of the serious game and game-based learning experiences I've seen. And so please plan, and just like our parents told us, measure twice, cut once. Plan twice as much, develop. So that's how you have to look at that situation. Another good example that might hit home with some of you, we've been building since around 2007, 2006, massive multiplayer virtual environments that are browser-based. We have been building them in Unity 3D, Unreal Engine, the Havoc engine, the Hero engine, Flare 3D, and now working in some WebGL development work. What we've been doing is building these custom for large companies. This is actually a serious game, virtual world learning management system, content management system, learning experience built for a large technology company. And what we have done is taking the theme of Tron, and we have developed out where you are actually this entire screenshot here, you are inside of a computer, and it's all conceptualized, and your job is to find the issues with the computer and migrate the data to cloud computing. And you do this not by instruction, or not by drag and drop, or not by just this is how you put it all in the cloud, but conceptualizing how do you handle an infrastructure. Do you handle ports and security? And it's all put into a conceptual experience where you are playing a World of Warcraft-like experience, but it's based around that context. So this learning experience also took about 8 months to build. It involves around 12 hours of simulated storylines, and learning experiences. This is built just as if you were playing Grand Theft Auto. So these experiences do not have where you walk into a room and there's just a billboard for you to click on with some text. We had to build artificial intelligence systems that come up and talk to you, walk away from you, give you hints. You have to chase people down. You have to fix the space station before you have an airlock gap, which would be a security breach. Otherwise, everyone dies on the space station. So the way that you look at it is, the conceptual thought is you are a space station, which is the computer. You are in space, and your job is to migrate all of the material and connect to the space dock, and migrate all of the supplies and material, which is data, onto the space station, and get yourself home safely. This is the type of complexity and learning experiences that we are doing. This type of development takes 10 full-time employees and 9 months to develop, and has been a huge success for the client. Unfortunately, the last 2 projects are 2 projects that are confidential, and I cannot explain who the client is or what we actually built them for, but to give you kind of an idea of what we've actually done. Some of the devices that we've been using for some of the learning experiences, we have been building Microsoft Connect training simulations. We have done VODA, which is Virtual Occupation Training Assistant, with a collaboration with another company. And is we took Microsoft Kinect and Unity 3D and built a 3D training or a 3D serious game that teach stroke victims how to make breakfast, how to make lunch, how to put groceries away, and tracking each one of their movements. And they have to do it on a daily basis as a game. And we're seeing how this is actually improving the people and improving their motor functions after having a stroke. That project won the Brandon Hall Awards. For all of you that are not aware of a Brandon Hall Award, that is the Oscars of the training or the corporate training in the e-learning realm. Another example, we built Recycle Roundup, which is a game that teaches you what needs to be recycled and what cannot be recycled. And what we have done is use the LEAP device. We've partnered with a large, we've partnered with LEAP Technologies, but we've also partnered with a large company that's implementing LEAP devices into their computers. And what we are doing is we have built Recycle Roundup, which is a game that teaches you how to sort material trash. And you're utilizing the LEAP motion device to actually pick up and sort the trash. And it's a serious game where you're timed. The high score goes to whomever has put away the most trash and put them in the correct bins and within a particular time frame. So that's another example of how we're utilizing motion tracking. And we all know that the Oculus just was bought out by Google or by Facebook, I'm sorry. So I'm very excited to see where they're going to be taking the Rift. What I want to talk about now is what is gameful design. Oftentimes I get many people that talk about gameful design and serious games and game-based learning and gamification. And I want to talk about what is gameful design. Gameful design is anytime that you're waiting on a particular situation or something happens that might be an epic fail. What it is it actually allows you to interact with something and make it playful for you while letting you down or making you wait. And a great example is how many of you have seen the whale tail from Twitter? For all of you that have not seen the whale tail from Twitter, the whale tail was when at the beginning when Twitter, we all jumped on Twitter, we overloading servers. And what we ended up doing is Twitter decided to make a gameful design 404 error screen that showed a bunch of little birds holding up a whale. And they even made it animated at one time. And the gameful design about that is sorry, this page has failed, but here's something cute and fun to look at. And what they're trying to do is change your behavior from being upset or disappointed into giving you a little smirk and smile. Now, a great example, and I think one of the best examples of this is Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza made the pizza tracker. For all of you that have not had a chance to check out the Domino's Pizza tracker, it's one of the greatest examples of gameful design I've ever seen. They have literally made a status bar and made gameful design out of it that made it fun for you to watch and wait for your pizza to be made. So if you get a chance, check out the Domino's Pizza tracker. All it is a progress bar that they have used to make gameful design with. And I literally think I stare and watch it and interact with it the entire time I'm waiting on my pizza. So now that I've talked about each one of these, gamification, game-based, or serious games, gameful design, all of that stuff, how do these classify? How do you classify these in context? So if you look at my screen, and I suggest to anyone that can't see it to really zoom in, because this is very, very important. Take a screenshot if you'd like, because this is the best way that I have found to classify what each one of these actually is. So if you noticed, I have my diagram here, and it says purpose at the top. At the bottom, it says fun. To the right, it says gameplay. To the left, it says no gameplay. This is the way to look at it. If there's no gameplay and it's fun, that's gameful design. If it has gameplay and it has purpose, that's a serious game. If it has fun and gameplay only, that's a game. If you have no gameplay and a purpose, you're going to utilize gamification. This is the best classification and a way to understand each one of these. Let me know if anyone is having problems. I see some of you are having problems seeing my last one. It should say best practices classification at the top. And what anyone can do is they can message me afterwards and I can send this over for you to take a look at. So this is the best way to classify. So what are the best practices when working in these realms? Here are some of the best practices for all of you out there. First thing, play games. You have to be able to play games and understand mechanics. One of the main criteria you have to have if you work at this place at designing digitally is you have to have so many hours of gameplay. So you were required to, in your leisure time, play games. And that doesn't matter if it's Candy Crush or it's matters to interacting inside of Second Life. Yes. From here, one of the things you should always do is make sure you think about the learning first, then the actual game. And what I mean by that is the learning is the most important piece here. It's what the outcome must be. These individuals must have this behavior change. However, at the same time, if you're going to integrate mechanics, they can't be separate. It has to be tied in together. The next is you must utilize the ADDIE method and the Agile method. The ADDIE method will help you in actually setting up what you want for your instructional design. But the Agile method allows you to do rapid prototypes. When building serious games or gamified learning experiences, trial and error is one of the best ways of going about doing it. And the reason why is trial and error allows you to see what the audience is really interested in. And oftentimes, one of the hardest parts for me is I have to convince CEOs why we're going to be developing it this way rather than the way that they envisioned it. And the reason why is the client is not the target audience. Often the training director at a company would like us to build a sales training game. They are not the audience. So one of the first things we will do is I will go interview, not the sales director. I don't want to talk to the sales manager. I want to talk to the salespeople directly. And I want to talk to them behind closed doors. So they'll tell me the honest problems that they're having. That way we can integrate those problems and those obstacles into this experience. Another thing you need to do is make sure you cross-reference any content with game mechanics. The next thing is determine what your objectives and measurements are going to be. One of the things I said before that I'll say again, serious games and game-based learning is scrutinized. It's under a microscope compared to traditional e-learning development work. So you have to be able to make sure to say, this is the measurement that you're going to see. This is how you're going to see the measurement. And this is how we're going to prove that this is better than just doing a presentation. You always must have reward systems that are focused on learning outcomes. Don't reward people for learning how to play the game. Reward them for learning what they're supposed to be learning. So one of the big things that we find is there are obstacles to technology. Many of us have found there are obstacles with the Second Life viewer and getting people inside of this experience. So we find that some of those may hinder your ability for them to learn what they're supposed to be learning. So that is something that we need to just keep in mind. Make sure that you're always emphasizing behavior change. When a learner or a user walks away from any experience that you have, their behavior must be changed. So in the experience of building the sales training game, their behavior is to learn how to sell the products, but also how to cross-sell. So we're actually tracking not just if they made single sales, but did they make multiple sales to that particular client, and how often and what did they sell. Those measurements must be outlined because they must be the piece of behavior that we're trying to change. Always create multiple endings for outcomes. The days of linear storylines are over. And if you're doing linear storylines, stop it. And the reason why I state that is we now have the ability with technology, even inside of Second Life and other virtual environments, to provide compelling storylines that have multiple outcomes, depending on, let's say, a pick your own adventure experience. So please make sure that you take the time to make sure that there's multiple outcomes. You'll be surprised by utilizing a collection of people that if they see multiple outcomes, the individuals that took it once will be more interested in taking it a second time, knowing that they could get a different outcome. Always develop in sprints. Always do rapid prototypes. And the reason why is rapid prototype and testing with this stuff and utilizing the agile system will allow you to make sure that you really nail this and you don't build something that you find out after you release it really didn't hit home with the target audience. And some of the most important pieces, play, test, revise, and repeat that about 100 times. One of the things that we've had to do is double down on the amount of quality assurance that we have when building serious games compared to building, let's say, a 3D model or even an e-learning experience. And the reason why is you have a lot more testing, you have a lot more analytical data to prove, and you have a lot more work that goes into formal user testing. So not only do we have that play, test, revise internally by our team, but then we have focus groups with the client and we get feedback from them. And then we go back and revise. Then we come back after that sprint and we go revise back and forth and back and forth. And this continues until the project is completely laid out and developed. So with that said, I do have to say I apologize that at first it was a little rough and we lost my Skype for just a minute. But I do want to say, thank you to everyone that has come today. I know your time is very valuable, and I just want to say thank you so very much for joining me in this presentation. If you have any other questions, I am going to open it up to the floor now. Am I hiring? Well, give you an idea. I just want to put this out there for anyone. We do hire freelance LSL developers, freelance web programmers, freelance interactive media developers, HTML5 developers, storyline developers, Captivate developers. And what you can do is actually, if you go to our website, under employment, you can actually fill out the form and you will actually be placed in the directory. And then what we will do is be taking a look at people as we have the demand and need for that. So sorry for the plug. I didn't mean to. I just saw it was a question. What other questions does the audience have today?
I think it's better if they get typed in text chat. I believe somebody was trying to use voice.
Yes.
Yeah, please type them in text chat. Andrew can't hear them.
Sorry, I have it turned down because we're on Skype also.
There it is. Did you see a question pop up there, Andrew? Lots of emphasis on individual achievement. Do you also do team reward systems?
Yes, we actually do. And I know I talked about the individual just because I was looking at it from an individual learner standpoint. But one of the things that we've done is in the analytical data, we have it broken down by department, by group, by team. And then some of the reward systems, especially for the serious game of the sales piece, it's done by region, it's done by department, it's done by division, it's also done by team or group. And as far as public education, the one thing I want to let you know is our company is focused on the corporate and government agencies. But I want you to know we don't necessarily focus on the K through 12. I am a professor at the University of Cincinnati. I have a big heart for education, but our company doesn't focus on the K through 12 side.
Okay, any final questions for Andrew before we finish up here? I think we have maybe one more question if anybody else has another one. If not, I think we are done then. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. Everyone, thank you all.
Hello, I will interject. This is Mel. I'm just on the broadcast channel, and Graham Mills has asked if do all employees respond equally well to the game-based approach, and are there any age effects?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we have found is for each culture and each corporation that we go into to pitch a serious game, what we find is each culture is completely different. Each target audience is completely different. So what we try to do is narrow that down in the research and analysis phase, because a lot of times if we try to build for the masses, you will lose divisions or demographics of people. So a good example is the sales training game that I was showing is for 18 to 37-year-olds, and it's focused on their ability to sell and what they're used to. So it really depends on the culture. It really depends on the target audience, and it really depends on the delivery of what you're going to do. Did I answer that correctly?
That was an excellent answer. Thank you, Andrew, so much. I think we will go ahead and wrap up then. Everyone, please give Andrew a nice, warm, welcome, a round of applause. His presentation has been awesome. Thank you, Andrew, so much for joining us this morning and for helping us kickstart this day's events.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to everyone. And again, let's all also give a round of applause to everyone that is a part of the committee that is making this happen. You know, there's a lot of time and energy that's went into this. So give everyone a round of applause for that.
That was great.
Okay, well,